Good evening and welcome to the Coral Springs Museum Artsplaining. I'm your host, Petra Guiland, and tonight we've got a special presentation for you. Tonight, we're going to be speaking to multiple artists from Diaspora in a Time of Change's current exhibition at the Coral Springs Museum of Art until May 1st. However, before we begin speaking to our artists this evening, we do want to take a moment and thank a lot of the sponsors and also the grantees of this museum. We want to thank the Department of State for the state of Florida, the Division of Cultural Affairs, the Florida Humanities Council, the National Endowment for the Arts, Broward County Cultural Division, thank you very much, Broward County Board of County Commissioners, the Greater Fort Lauderdale Convention and Visitors Bureau. Of course, we've got to thank the city that we live in, the city of Coral Springs, and the museum's board of directors. Of course, we can't do this without their vision and help. And of the museum's members. We can't be providing these fun exhibitions, these presentations, classes, workshops without members such as yourself. So we do appreciate all of the help that you provide us. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about this new exhibition, Diaspora in a Time of Change. So this exhibition really provides us with an opportunity to fill in gaps, to provide an exhibition that reflects the community that the Coral Springs Museum of Art is located within. It provides an opportunity for this museum to provide representation, something that's much needed within the world of the art industry. And we are so glad to be a part of it. Tonight, I'd like to introduce to you Juan Jose Cielo. Juan, how are you doing this evening?
Very good, thank you.
We are so glad you're here tonight. Now, you actually are in the title wall here, Diaspora. So tell us a little bit about this piece. I have to say, I grew up with a lot of Latin American art. And this picture, this painting, this piece is so emblematic of walking down the street and seeing these pueblas, these little villages that you see dotting around the countryside. So tell me a little bit more, because there's a lot of other things going on up there.
All right, so the painting is about imagining Colombia in the future. I'm from Colombia, I was born there, I grew up in Miami, so I'm dual cultures, American and Colombian. And a lot of things that I try to do with my work are to connect visions of the future that Americans have in film and cinema with like the culture of like my family, you know, places that you never see in movies. So this is what I was interested in, you know, imagining like flying cars and towns that are centuries old, you know, in Colombia.
It's an incredible piece. Is this a certain location in Colombia?
Yeah, this is Barichara in Colombia. It's in the Santander region.
Is this where your family's from then?
No, it's just like one of the very scenic towns that has like cobblestone roads. So
it's pretty obvious that the cobblestone roads in these small pueblos have affected your paintings, but tell us more about some of the other paintings you have too.
They address similar subject matter. There's some paintings that are stained glass satellites, so it's like in space, but it's like a crystal chandelier, like a solar panel kind of thing, or other flying cars in other regions. I have one where it's like my grandmother on like a hover bike over like a field. Yeah.
I love how you juxtaposed really traditional symbols and looks of these pueblas with these flying spaceships, basically. You know, the other day I was talking to someone, I think it was another artist within Diaspora, and they were saying it looks as if the puebla is actually in the clouds. And I said, oh my gosh, because it looks as though you can actually walk into the painting because of the size, and the size is what now? 3 by 5?
Yeah, that's correct.
So it's almost as tall. I'm about 5'4", so I can almost walk into your painting. So it's really neat how you've really compared and contrasted those two things, with the traditional and the super sci-fi. So I think it's really cool. So talking about sci-fi, talking about technology, talking about all that, how do you feel like social media has helped provide a platform for, you know, diversity and representation of artists such as yourself?
I think there's no equivalent to what it does in terms of like the ability to discover artists and to see new works. Like it's just a fountain of information. I mean, before I used if someone recommended you could hear about some new artists, but it really is an amazing tool to find new works and find new artists, and it's like a never-ending stream of that, thankfully. So, and it also changed a bit like the dynamic of who you hear about, because a friend's like, oh no, just check out this person's profile, and you have access to all that information right there. You learn quickly who else that is connected to, what other galleries, and you're like, okay, you understand the context of this person and their work, and it's really useful for that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that really, I mean, Instagram especially is really for the artist. I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. I know we're going to chat a little bit later with the group. And now we're going to head over to, just like there's a Madonna and a Cher and an Oprah, we're going to head over and talk to Symphonii. So hang on and we'll talk to her for a little bit. All right. Just like I said, Madonna, Cher, Oprah, nothing compares to Miss Symphonii. I mean, you just need to go with that one name. I know that your last name though was Smith-Kennedy. We had a whole conversation about it this morning, but tell us a little bit about La Bruja, the witch. Tell me a little bit about this. I love this piece.
Thank you. This piece is actually supposed to be a study of a larger painting where she meets her lover, even though I know she doesn't look happy, but that's not about to see right now. But she is the protagonist of the prequel of my story called Urban Celestial. And her story takes place as being a Black queer woman and a witch, and on her journey and all through the things that she struggles with, but she doesn't let her problems get in the way of what her true purpose is in life. And I found it interesting to paint that instead of writing about it, because I feel like it brought it more to life and to the viewer's eyes as well. Just have a story like that, because no one really talks about the intersectionality of someone being that mixed up in that form of a way.
I have a question for you. Knowing and talking about animation and all the new shows that are coming out, I want to hear a little bit more about what you think the new trend in the art industry for 2021 is.
I think the new trend is having more people of color in the art industries in all the spectrums. So not even just exhibiting their work, but also being the ones to pick out, them being on the juries, them being the curators, them being the
directors.
Yeah. Right now, I'm in the Black Art Sessions show, and the main curator for that is Ebony L. Haynes and stuff. So this is a really big thing for me. It's my first time doing the solo show, so I'm excited. But it's funny because she's one of the first Black directors for her. I think she is the first Black director for her gallery. I have to search up which one that is again.
Can you tell us the name of that again? It's what's it called?
Oh, her name?
Oh, no, the group that you're...
Oh, Black Art Sessions.
Fantastic.
It's all Black artists and Black curators. It's really exciting. I think it's a total of 80 of us. And it's a really big show.
We are so excited that you came here tonight, Symphonii. Thank you so much for spending the time with us tonight, and we'll be talking to you later.
Thank you.
And now we're going to head over to Maria Lino. We're here now with Maria Lino. Maria, it's so lovely to have you here this evening. We're so glad to hear tonight. Tell us a little bit about your incredible tapestry.
Yes, okay. Well, this is part of a series called Walking the Earth. And it really starts with a previous series that's called I'm an Immigrant. And those were a series of self-portraits. But then it came into my research with global migration. So it's not only migration into the United States, but actually migration as part of human history. This is what our species has done all through our lives for whatever reason. Most of the time, of course, it's because of wars or just, now it's climate change, but even problems with the climate. It could be persecution. It could just be that, you want to have a better life for your children. So this is something, and that's why in my work, I have people from different backgrounds. So I might have somebody that has a jihad, maybe not in this one, but in others. And one of the things I noticed is that oftentimes in many of the camps where they rest, you're going to see clothes over the fences or clothes over the rocks because they have to wash them in the rivers. So this particular series had to do with clotheslines. And I have 13 of them by now. I do not do the weaving personally. I do the drawings, the painting. I send it out machine woven, and then I do the hand embroidery. So
it's beautiful.
Thank you.
And you said it's a series of 13.
Right now, I have already 13.
Wow.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your own personal background.
Okay, I'm Cuban. My parents came before the Cuban Revolution, which was in 1959. My parents came in 1954. I was 3, so I'm giving out my age. And they first went to New York, and then they came to Miami. What they used to do is go back and forth from Cuba to Miami to work. I started calling them, now I call them factory migrants, because they came to work in factories. And a lot of time they work with their hands. And that's another reason why I like anything that's working with hands. I have other series about women working with their hands, and that's my background. Now, I studied in New York City, which my parents hated, but I love New York City. So I studied in New York, and I lived there for many years. And I really came to Miami I didn't want to come back to Miami, I'll tell you the truth. And I found it very difficult, because at that point I had already been to Cuba as an adult. I was 26. I went back to Cuba, and the first thing I was told in Miami was that because I had been to Cuba, they would not give me an exhibition.
Oh my gosh.
So I've had a tough time. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So talking about challenges, what do you think is the biggest challenge for artists right now in terms of representation in the art industry?
I think it could be also being a woman. We're still not up there at the same level of representation than men, but also, let's call them white men. And I hate to say that, because I'm not considered white in this country, and I don't care. In fact, I counted one day, I have people from 11 different backgrounds in my family, including Haitian, Colombian, I have Chinese, Cuban, whom I'm very worried about. Anyway, 11 people I counted one time. So I really don't care. I'm very mixed culturally and probably also racially, even if I don't look it. So I think more than anything else is where you're at. So for example, I live in Miami, so politically, that's a challenge for me. But also the fact of being a woman, I still think is a challenge for me. You know,
I was going to say, I think that's also something that we talk about. We talk about the challenges that women have within their own diaspora as well, which is also represented. We're really excited that you're here tonight. We're so glad you're in the exhibition.
So happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here to talk about your Cuban descent. My mother also grew up in Cuba, part of her life as well. Talking about the female diaspora, we are going to be moving forward. And thank you again, Maria. We're going to be talking to Sonia Baez-Hernandez in just a minute.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and continue to join us tonight in Artsplaining here at Coral Springs Museum of Art. We're really excited to talk to Sonia Baez-Hernandez, who is the Best in Show winner for Diaspora's Time and Change. So Sonia, we're so glad that you're here this evening. Tell us a little bit about this incredible piece that won Best in Show.
The piece wanted to envision that, the diaspora is connected to the need for labor workers, and then it's important then that we take that in considerations, then that, for example, the African American was a type of forced labor. When we think about the Asian American, is connected to contracts that the U.S. did with Japan and China. And then also then we have to envision as well other groups in that the diaspora here, for example, in the U.S. in relation to colonial relation, when the U.S., for example, have the word, the Spanish word, in this context, they are treated. Then they got possessions of Puerto Rico, the Philippines, and then they have this type of mobilization precisely when the U.S. have the type of policy that they wanted to expand. And with that, they have women then that exchange letters, this from Japan and China, because then they were only accepting men, and then the marriage would occur with this type of connections to writing and representing themselves sometimes as somebody that they were not. And then for me also was really important then to think about women as a political actor in their fight for the right to vote, and then seeing the interactions of women of color with white women, and then how the women of color at least was demanding, for example, in the case of the African American, that Black women would get we get the abolition of the slavery, and in addition to the right to vote. And then I also thought, as a critique, also in the ways in that they celebrate, quote unquote, the centenary of the right to vote, but then they're thinking about what happened in 1920s, and we happen to think and now criticize that was not linear in terms of the history of the civil rights of the women's rights movement, but also it would be until the 1964 then that women of color have the right to vote. And then it's important then to understand the importance of the diaspora in terms of the engagement with politics. And then we see then that they mobilize this time to try to change the political outcome to promote some type of social change in the US in terms of the nativist political cultures and that have been practiced here for 4 years.
Wow, it's an incredible piece. I mean, talking about advancements and trying to better the situation for oneself. Tell me about some of the advancements and the ways we can advance representation within the art industry. What are some of your suggestions to do that?
No, for me, that we have to rethink on changing the structure to dismantle our culture in the ways in that we have been. The foundations of who we are is white supremacy. And then when you think about that, in all the institutions, the majority of the institutions, then they are guided by that. The policy of the museums, they usually, and then we see, for example, with the Gorilla Girls, the type of criticism that they did in terms of that when women are represented there as an artist are 3%, and the other 85%, they're not, at least in the way that they're represented in the museum. And then when you think about African Americans, this is some kind of diversity that appear, but it have a cost. And it have a cost because, for example, I think that one time I was exhibiting in one place, and then I was exhibiting, and then the person says, "Oh, is that your work?" And I says, "Yes." And he says, I did not imagine that your work would look like that. And I asked him, how do you imagine my work to look like? So for me, it's, even when it's inclusion, is with a cost, because we experience then that they will ask us, who are you assisting to?
Right.
They are not assuming that. So for me, we have to dismantle at least the ideology that are part of the cultural institution, and then we have them to really have a programs in that have in mind diversity, that somehow is an element of equality of thinking, then that if we have the same training that, or they have people that don't have formal trainings, that we have the same capacity,
Mm-hmm.
and then we are questioned in terms of the ways in that we create art. So for me, it's that, we have to dismantle the type of stereotype that we have in everyday life. And then also the lack of access then that minority have, for example, to have the experience of, educations in that lead them to the art. And I think that is also disparities in the ways then of the access then that we have in terms of education, in terms of exhibition. So I think that is very difficult. And then, some of the trends now is then, for example, here in Florida, is then that they have created it's a kind of, and then it's happened while Art Basel is happening, they have a fair that is for African descent. And then for me, it's that we always creating structure that imply, if you're a minority, then you can create your little ghetto, and then you are creating your fair, And then there you will have some kind of representation. And it's very difficult for me to understand that if we question representations, then that we have not done enough to. And then I agree with what Symphonii was saying is that, when it's a moment of crisis, then yes, they show this kind of openness. But then, at the end, this openness is just because it's a crisis and then they wanted to respond to. But in reality, they don't create a programs then to change the Western way.
It becomes a trend.
Yes.
And it's a moment.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that this is not going to be a moment for us in this museum. This museum is, we're really trying to fill those voids and to fill those gaps so that we do have continuing educational exhibitions for the community that reflects what we are, which is this community, which is this diaspora within the community. So I want to thank you, Sonia, for sharing with us this incredible piece and your thoughts as well. So thank you very much. We appreciate you being here and part of the exhibition. We're now going to head over to Miss Yochi, and we'll be talking to her in just a second. We're so excited to end with Yochi. Yochi, tell us a little bit about your piece. And first I have to say, you have to say your last name, please. Tell me again.
Yakir-Avin.
Love it. So Yochi, thank you so much for being here tonight with us. Tell us a little bit about your piece and how your background in diversity plays part of this.
Mm-hmm. Well, my piece talks about memories. It's personal memories. It's personal work. And it combines memories of my childhood from photos and from memories and talking while talking to family members. My family changed because of diaspora, changed location. They were forced to leave Poland in the early 1950s and moved to Israel. And this change made a lot of, it affected a lot my family and of course my history. During the years, I was trying to fill those gaps by talking to my family, talking to my mother, who has completely different memories of the same shared experiences we had. And it was very interesting to see the difference between how she saw it and remembered it and what I know because I was there. During the COVID, during the isolation, probably because of the isolation, I started to connect more, looking for connection to the stories, to the photos, my family photos, and I started to work with them. The truth is, it started a little bit earlier, couple of years ago, when I did my first work regarding the memory project. I call it memory project, and it was the memory drawers, in which I put pictures, photos of my family on top of drawers, and the drawers inside have small items that relate to the photos. This was the first attempt to deal with my memories and my history. The second one was during COVID, in which I started this work. And it also relates to my family history. Now I'm working on my third project in the memory project. It's interactive cardboard boxes. On top of them, they are engraved pictures, and it's you can people can move the boxes, and it will be exhibited next month in my solo show in Fort Lauderdale.
Fantastic. We're really looking forward to seeing that. So as you've been learning within the business, could you give a little bit of advice to someone who might be starting out in the field, in the industry?
Well, I think that first of all, an artist who starts need to become professional. The more professional an artist is, it's easier. Professional and then patient, persistent, and original. Artist must connect to his instinct. I think instincts are very important.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much for being here tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
We're now going to be going to our round table and talking a little bit with all of the artists about the exhibition Diaspora, Time of Change here at the Coral Springs Museum of Art. Thank you again for joining us at the Coral Springs Museum of Art as we start our roundtable portion of Artsplaining for the current exhibition Diaspora in a Time of Change here at the Coral Springs Museum of Art until May 1st. I also want to thank some of our public viewers who are here in-house. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. We really appreciate your support of the artists and of course the Coral Springs Museum of Art. So one of the things that I wanted to sit down with the five of you guys is talking about what you guys learned. What is it that you are willing to bring to the table again? What is it that you may have picked up from another artist in terms of representation, in terms of this exhibition? And for the only guy in the group, which is I'm so thankful that you're here tonight, tell us a little bit about that. I mean, again, probably being a Latino man within an organization or within this exhibition too, what that means for you.
Well, I'm very excited to be a part of the show and part of the group, and really glad to be able to meet everybody. I've taken a lot of inspiration from seeing the different ways everyone works in material and how their material reflects like their ideology, their concept, and it's all like the tapestry versus like clothing, but they're both embracing something about politics and identity, and it's fantastic to see like all the different ways.
Yeah, it is. It's really fascinating because, of course, having that like intersectionality is really important. I think again, when we're talking about diaspora, when we're talking about representation within the field of art, is the different intersecting views and viewpoints and experiences. Tell me a little bit, Yochi, about what maybe something you've picked up during this exhibition.
Yeah, first of all, it was a pleasure to meet the artists and to see, as mentioned, the diversity of approaches, of places every artist comes from, how each one approaches the diaspora. It was fascinating. But I think one of the interesting things that happened prior to the exhibition is when I was talking to people and mentioning the fact that I'm going to participate in the Diaspora exhibition, and people couldn't understand Diaspora was related to Jewish experience, and it changed completely I don't know since when, but it definitely changed, and it includes all kinds of diasporas and when I was talking to people and mentioning that, I was happy to let them know that diaspora is not only for Jewish, it's for many, many people who migrate and change places and change communities, and that's fascinating for me. So I think this is an excellent exhibition that brings that to the table.
Yeah, I think it creates a lot of discussion, and this is what this is about. I mean,
Yeah.
Symphonii, you're the youngest in the group, which is phenomenal that you're in an exhibition talking about your experiences as well. Tell us a little bit about what you may have picked up.
I think it really gave me a moment to reflect on how it's good to be young, but to also understand that I have so much time now, because to see like all these respected artists here and knowing that they've been doing it for so long, and I didn't just start getting in the game, but now I'm just understanding that I can go about it at my own pace and not have to rush about these things, because art's always going to be there for me and stuff. And just seeing all the successful artists that are doing me, it makes me really feel good too.
Good. This is great. And you know, I think that something that Sonia, that you and I talked about too, you know, having that experience is really important, you know, being part of it and playing it out in your work. Tell us a little bit about how maybe you picked up something during the show. I know that when you first actually applied, we were talking this morning, when you first applied, you're like, well, maybe I'm not sure what, someone told you about it, right?
Maria told me.
That's great.
She's backing me up all the time.
Likewise.
Yes. At least, you know, for me, it's I love, you know, and I have been in Miami, we have been talking a lot that, you know, I became an artist more in New York, and then after that, I you know, went to do something else, and then I applied to the MFA. But for me, it was that, you know, I felt like when I was in Chicago, I have more a community. And I think that for me, when we have this opportunity where then we could mingle together and then we could talk, that is really wonderful, because then we know something about the artist. We have sometimes we exchange information to keep in contact. Because I think that for me, that is also this type of friendship, also with people then that they're envisioning what is the diaspora, what is the problem then that we are addressing, because I think sometimes we are addressing problem of, you know, the memory that we have about that social problem, then that people are forced to move for political reasons or for fascism or for racism. And I think that kind of visions then that we have in terms of thinking about having a better society, a more humane society, is a great space then to share in the museum, but also to share, because we heard your story, because we heard how each of us have conceptualized those concepts that they sometimes are very difficult, because sometimes it could be when we're a child, when we migrate as an adult too. So I think that for me that is something that I love when it happens.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think having that space here so that we can exchange ideas and ideologies, experiences. How about you, Maria? You actually got her into this.
I know. I'm a firm believer that information should be free and it should be for everybody. Sometimes I actually tell somebody about an opportunity and I don't get it and they get in, but I really think it should be there, and I hope that people do that for me. And Sonia had invited me to a show. That's how we met. So that was, and as far as this particular show, I just looked around and see so many work that I love, and I was like, I should have submitted a video. I should have submitted a painting. I should have submitted an artist book, because there are just so many beautiful. And I'm not saying it because some of the artists are here. When I saw the exhibition installed the night of the opening, I was like, this is beautiful. So I'm very happy.
Well, we're very happy that all of you are in the show, Diaspora at a Time of Change, until May 1st, the Coral Springs Museum of Art. I want to thank every single one of you. Thank you very much for participating tonight. Thank you very much for sharing special and intimate parts of yourself as you do with these stories that you shared tonight, and also in your artwork. I know that it takes a lot to take that step and share those very intimate stories about who you are and your experiences. So I want to thank you for that. I want to thank our viewing audience on Facebook and also on YouTube Live. Thank you so much for following the Coral Springs Museum of Art. If you liked this conversation, we ask that you subscribe, do all the good things you need to do to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. We want to thank you again. And I do want to do a special shout out to two special sponsors for tonight. That's Higher Bridge and Marie Antonatos. Without you guys as well, we couldn't be doing what we're doing. So thank you very much for sponsoring tonight's Artsplaining, in addition to the exhibition Diaspora and a Time of Change here at the Coral Springs Museum of Art. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good night.